Welcome to the Turning Lemons into Lemonade podcast. Each week, your host, Amy Mewborn, business strategist and advisor, will bring you the stories of how successful women entrepreneurs turn their tragedies into triumphs to create the businesses that are changing the world today. And now, your host, Amy Mewborn.
Franziska Neumann is the owner of FZK Francisca, a creative agency that helps design-oriented clients grow and steward their online presence. She has 20 years of experience in the design industry across the fields of architecture, interior design, and styling for decor magazine Martha Stewart Living. Her designs have been featured in several decor magazines, on HGTV, and on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Francisca transitioned to web design in 2008 with a desire to marry the worlds of code and high-end design. FZK Francisca is now a team of 8 local and virtual creatives delivering a full spectrum of agency services.
Welcome, Francisca. Thank you so much for being here. I hear that you are out in California right now enjoying some fun. Tell us a little bit about your business, how you got there, and now how you're kind of changing where you are in your business.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for having me. So excited to chat with you today. So I began in kind of a different business than I am now, but I've woven them together over the years, and which came out of lemons and, came out of making lemonade from lemons. So it's perfect title. I love the title of your podcast. Yeah, so I actually began working as an interior designer back in London, in the suburbs of London, and just learning on the job as much as I could, and got frustrated pretty quickly because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of trades to understand if you're trying to do that successfully. I was very young, but built great relationships, and it was fun, but I always wanted to get better because there's a lot of possibility for mistakes and things to go wrong in that trade. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'll study architecture and then I'll be an expert and this will never happen again. I know what I'm doing and I'll have it covered. So I studied architecture, and obviously that still doesn't help the whole thing. After studying that, we went to New York. At that point, I'd met my now husband, and we got together and thought, you know what, we'll do this thing of seeing if we can make it in New York. That's what you do. And I actually had a green card from way back when. I'm German, studied in England, and so part of my life evolved around visas, and it's part of the lemon story here. So we went to New York, and in 2 years, built a pretty sweet career in interior design from being nobodies. I worked in showrooms. I styled for Martha Stewart Living magazine. Always loved magazines. Made these great relationships and connections. Worked in an architecture firm, and we did all of Donna Karen's shop layouts and her personal homes. It was fantastic. And in our spare time, we had fun with the 350 square foot rental that we had in Chelsea, Manhattan. So, but because I love magazines, there was a magazine back then called Metropolitan Home that had an annual readers issue where you could submit pictures of your home. Mm-hmm. So I got my friend to photograph it. We sent it in, and they published it. So that was a big turning point because the press then saw us as small space experts. Mm-hmm. That we had done. We had kind of designed and built custom furniture for our apartment. Wow. And other magazines followed, press, what is press? So, and at the end of the day, HGTV called as well because they were doing a small space, big style series back then. This was in 2005, and we just had a baby, and they could not believe that we were living in 350 square feet with a baby. So they stuck us in their star lead episode and just were all over it. And I kind of thought, well, great start, right? This is it. We've got it made. So But then things changed. So I know you have another question, but that was kind of my first trajectory in career.
So this conversation already has gone so far off of where I ever could have imagined, which is what I love about this, because I've known you at this point for probably about a year and a half. And this is the first time I've heard any of this. So I'm just absolutely riveted and can't wait to have you now tell us, how did that become the business you're running today?
Right. So, the challenge then was that at this glorious moment where HGTV aired our show, we couldn't get any more visas for my husband, and we had to leave New York. Oh. So, and I love travel. I've been around the world. I've lived in many countries. I love that challenge. In that moment, I remember sitting on our couch on that day that we were packing up, and I was just gutted. I was like, why now? This is just wrong. We need to stay here, but I didn't want to split up the family. So we moved back to London. And then the other crazy thing that happened, so in London, my child started developing some health issues. So life became very challenging for me. And, I already wasn't happy. I was in this other place. I had to start over. I was a mom to a tiny one with issues, never slept. And life wasn't great. It was the beginning of 10 very dark years in my life. I had to fly back to the States for visa reasons. So there was the one key day, most bittersweet day of my life, because I flew back to New York for 24 hours to deal with visas. And I land, and we still had a cell phone. I still have my New York number, an American cell phone. In England, it was just sitting in our cupboard. But I took it with me. I was at the baggage claim. I turn it on, and there's a voicemail. I'm like, okay, I wonder what that is. So listening to the voicemail at the baggage claim, and it goes, hey, this is Colleen from the Oprah Winfrey Show. We've seen your bed and your lights, and Nate Burkus is doing a small space special, and we'd really love to have your furniture on the show.
Okay.
What? I mean, if somebody had watched me there, they were probably like, she's nuts, because I was like, what?
As women, we're all waiting for the call from Oprah's show, by the way. That is like, that's the moment where you're like, oh my goodness, I have finally made it, because Oprah knows who I am.
Right. So I was like, oh my God, and is this, because the phone was in a cupboard for like 2 months. I was like, when was this? So I'm listening to this message like over and over, trying to work out when it was left, and it was still current. And it had been left like the day or 2 days before. So it was one of these crazy coincidences that I was even there to hear it. Mm-hmm. So I called them back, and, we pursued this whole thing of trying to get our items, which we had shipped to England,
right,
onto the Oprah show, like within 4 weeks, because they don't give you any notice. Plus, they weren't going to pay for any of the shipping, and we were so broke from this whole moving back and forth,
of course,
and blah blah blah. We're like, oh, no idea what to do, and they were like, yeah, just ship it over, and maybe we'll feature it. Like, could you decide? Could you tell us before we do that, please? Yes. So, long story short, my husband ended up flying over a light fixture that we had designed and made in his suitcase and fixing it onto the set. And it was featured. But it was 2006, and the internet wasn't what it is today. And it was just too hard to try and manufacture a piece of furniture, something that we hadn't done before. In the UK for a US market, or run US manufacture from the UK. I mean, the whole thing just imploded. Yeah. And hence, so bittersweet, because it was this amazing opportunity. And I was so gutted that we just could not find a way to pull it off. We couldn't monetize it. There's nothing I could do. So, I don't know. the good thing that came out of it is that when Oprah calls, you need a website, right? Even
quickly,
then,
probably.
Right,
Really
quickly. And, again, we didn't have the thousands of dollars that New York agencies wanted to build as a website. So I was like, ugh, I have to learn. I'm going to build my own. Back then it was in Dreamweaver. So I had a friend who was like, I can show you. You can do this. It's fine. So that was the beginning of transitioning into web, because I had to have a website. And obviously as a designer, I'm finicky about what that looks like. And I've always loved the intersection between design and a technical or structural element. I think some people clearly identify as creative and others clearly as kind of the technical. And I love that between and marrying the two. So I enjoyed it. And we had a website.
Well, I often tell all of my clients that you normally can find a designer or a developer, but you can not normally find someone that can both create the vision and do the execution at the same time. So to have someone that can do that, because a lot of times as clients, we have a kind of a general idea of how we want things to look aesthetically. But I can tell you, I'm not a designer. Every time I go and I'm like, no, move that here and do this there, I look at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it looks like a 5-year-old put this together. So it's amazing, I think, to have a skill set that allows you to be both the designer and the developer. So you just told us this crazy story of a whole bunch of lemons. I mean, you had a home, you guys had to move, you're there and your son is not well. And then you guys are back here trying to build a business. So tell me, how did you guys end up back in the US? And then how did you end up kind of building the business that you now have today?
Yeah. So, ending up in the US was again all to do with visas, and we're now all US citizens, but it was this 11-year crazy ride to get there. I'll spare the details. But yeah, so we came back here in 2008. My son at that point had been diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, like things got worse on his health radar. I had to transition into caretaker, which is a big lesson I took away and learned much later, that being mom and a caretaker are two very separate things. Mm-hmm. And I had to give up my career completely for 10 years. There was just nothing I could do. And actually out of that, constrained, all I felt I was able to do was to volunteer. So I ended up, we went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there was an event called Design Santa Fe, and all the interior designers of Santa Fe put it on. It was an annual fundraiser, and I started volunteering to help put that on and bring speakers to the event. And they worked out that I had built a website. So it kind of, word went around, and one of them started saying, well, you know how to build a website, build me one. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll try it, and it seemed less threatening at the time than actually doing a full interior design project where you have to be on site at certain times, or, pipes can burst and seriously real life things can break. Right. I was like, okay, the web isn't, the code can break, but nobody's going to die. No antique furniture gets damaged.
You can still be home with your son, but still building a business and bringing in family revenue.
Right. And we needed all of those. And so I very slowly, and, out of that group of like 12, 15 interior designers, I think 7 of them are still my clients today, like 7 years later.
Wow.
So that was probably the single biggest reason as to why I became a web business and sort of became the interior designer's web designer.
Wow. So tell me, what is kind of your secret sauce? What do you bring to your business that you don't think that most people in web design are doing?
So based on, now that you know the story, having kind of a nice career for a while and being visible in the interior design world and then being completely cast into the shadows like that. There's a pain that goes with that. Like that hurt. It was dark. And I see so many experts not great at putting their own work out into the world, especially online. You know, interior designers have very exciting real life worlds, but they tend to ignore online or not understand it, and they don't really use it. Their clients come from referrals. So it's become my passion to give vision, you know, to give a stage, an online stage to these talented people's expertise, you know, to show it. And that excites me more than anything, you know. And it's hard to do for ourselves. You know, like I think you need somebody to really listen and see you and dig into who you are, what your brand is, what you stand for, and then translate that into a visual language that you can, you know, use to put out online.
And what would you say in going through all of these iterations of your business and building your business to what it is today? What are some of the top resources that you feel have really contributed to your success?
Top resources. Yeah. We were to say, we've obviously met through the 90-day year. So Todd Herman's amazing 90-day year kind of achievement engine is sort of what saved me out of the just desperate state of not being able to pursue anything. My disruptions were constant. You know, if you're a medical caretaker for your child, like his condition could hit at any point in time. I could never be away from him for more than like half an hour or an hour and a half. Like how it was impossible to sort of build anything in the beginning. So when I learned his processes, that sort of gave me hope. Plus, there's other very concrete things I learned out of that sort of constraint. So one is, you know, the focusing on the wins is so important because you very easily get into comparing yourself to what your life was. You know, it took me a long time to let go of, but I was on Oprah. You know, what am I doing now and here? And, you know, like what happened, you know, I was just resentful for a long time. But to sort of focus on new wins, little wins, and to not compare, you know, I had to learn to not compare myself to moms of able, healthy children. You know, they could achieve amazing things in a day. And that was not in my realm. You know? Sure. To keep your mindset focused on today, I was able to spend 20 minutes and I did one thing, you know, and just dial it right back. So those little steps were key, absolute key.
I think that's huge. And I think it's one of the things that Todd really has brought to the forefront of the entrepreneurial space, because I think a lot of times one thing is Todd attracts achievers. And so he attracts the people that are constantly trying to do more and get further. And it's so easy sometimes to look and say, oh, but I thought I would be here by now, or you know, today I had this to-do list and I had all of these things I had planned to get done and I got 2 things done. How does this happen? And Todd is great about, like you said, having you look at the wins. And I will say that every 90 days, every quarter, that is a huge thing for me to look and see, okay, well, maybe I didn't hit my revenue goal this time, or maybe I didn't bring in as many clients as I thought I would, or any number of things. But these are all the things I did do this quarter. And it's really, I think, empowering to be able to make decisions for tomorrow when you look at the things that went well today. So, yeah, I totally get that. So, before we press record, you were describing that you are kind of trying the entrepreneur's dream, that you're working from anywhere and that you happened to have a couple of live events and conferences and everything. And you decided that rather than your family going back and forth, that your family was going to just kind of pick up and you were going to be somewhere else for a month. How's that going?
Good so far. Going well for me, but my husband and I have actually completely switched roles right now due to other reasons. So he's house husband and I am the breadwinner.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he would say about how it's going. But I stuck my desktop because I didn't want to work on my laptop for a month in the back of the car, and we drove out to California. And I love being able to work. I'm just really into it right now, which I think you can understand after 10 years of just this incredible frustration. I feel like I've been released into being able to do what I love to do. So I'll do it anywhere.
That's awesome. Well, last year we sold our house in Carlsbad and we were homeless for 4 months, and we had the house being built here in Vegas. And so we literally were traveling everywhere. And so my husband runs a radio station or a radio show, and then I was trying to run my business from the road. So in our cars, we had 2 big iMacs. And then I ended up going and getting a MacBook Pro because I had to get on planes. And I'm like, you know what? This is crazy. My little MacBook Air, it just won't do the things I need it to do for long periods of time. It's fine for some internet browsing and it's fine for some basic things. But, if you're really building like an online business, a lot of times there's video production or there's audio production, or we're doing things like this today. And I just couldn't run a business online on my little bitty computer. So last week, my lovely computer that I love with all of my heart, I decided I was going to clean house, and I spilled a glass of water all over it and lost everything I had just done on the podcast. So I lost like 7 interviews that had not yet been moved to Dropbox. And, those are those things where you have these lemons to lemonade where you're like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this a good thing? And now that's going to end up being one of the episodes, because I'm going to actually talk about, backing up your computer and having all these things, because I pay for premium Dropbox. I just was too freaking stupid to use it. Oh, no. And so I just had things sitting on the desktop because I had been working in them and hadn't moved them yet. But yes, those are those things that as entrepreneurs, you're kind of going along on your way one day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oops, I just kind of hit a roadblock. So tell me, what one piece of advice would you give to a woman that was trying to launch or scale a business? You've had so many experiences at this point now. What one piece would you say is like a must know?
Must know. That's an awesome question. I think, you have to do it your way. I've never been able to become something, the online world is full of amazing stories of how other people have done fantastic things. And those can be hard. I was frustrated, especially with the past successes in my life. I'm like, oh God, they're doing this so quickly and they're making all this money overnight. And you have no idea how much, $10,000 would mean to me right now. And you've made that in one day. So I think to just stay very focused on who you are and the one thing that you're good at and that you love. Like my love for magazines has sort of carried me through so many iterations of my career, and I kind of always tie it back to that. I'm working on that right now. Somehow there's going to be another magazine in my future.
I love it.
But it's become my big breakthrough. My love through magazines and being then featured in them, and that was the building block. So I think follow the fun and stay with who you are. Don't let anything else kind of distract you. Just never really works.
Yeah. Well, you're so right, because we talk about it all the time, especially in Todd's group, is, shiny object syndrome, and us looking around and being like, well, I have the skills to do that. Yeah, I could do that too. And eventually you find yourself pulled in so many different directions that you're not really doing any one thing particularly well anymore, because you've turned yourself into a generalist instead of a specialist. So,
yeah. And actually, one other little thing I've been thinking about a lot in the last week is that we make those tiny little decisions today, like taking on a client. You think, awesome, that's a great new client. And then you're working with them for months and months. And by month 3, you might realize that was actually not the right decision. So I think we have to be careful of these tiny little decisions that we make each day, and really kind of think them through and project into the future, making sure we are building a business based on a model that truly works. People have told me all the time, because I'm soft-spoken, I'm kind, I'm quiet, people always say, well, you probably can't market. You probably have a really hard time selling yourself. And I've actually never, ever had a problem finding new clients. But based on that advice, I've often gone out in these waves and gotten new clients and gotten myself into a whole bunch of trouble. Like, how do I, not having thought through, like, that doesn't actually work in my current team. Like, how am I going to deliver on that? So another point for kind of staying true to, when you make those tiny decisions every day, just make sure they're the right ones.
Well, because both of us work a fair amount with one-on-one clients, I think we all experience that, in that, when you're hungry for new clients, you kind of, you want to service everyone, and you want to service everyone well. And eventually you find that there are some people that you work really well with, and there are some people that you don't. And one of the things that I implemented in my business probably about 2.5 years ago was a series of questionnaires, and they didn't get access to one questionnaire until they had finished the last one. And I made my prospective clients jump through a lot of hoops before they could ever talk to me. And so this way I could kind of be segmenting them a little bit along the way. And if people were starting to show some red flags that they weren't a good fit, then they would kind of get sent in a different direction. And now when I actually get on a sales call with a prospect, they have 1 week to make a decision, and there's a particular price for that 1 week. And after that week, the price goes up by over 30%. And
nice. Yeah.
The reason was that, one, I found that I work best with action takers. So if you're wishy-washy, or you're like, well, I don't know, I need to think about it. If you can't make a decision on something in a week's time, then you're probably going to be way more work for me. Right. And you're probably not going to achieve the levels of success that I would hope that you would, and that I would be encouraging you to as my client. And so, it's been one of the blessings and the curses, because you have to have way more leads on the front end before you actually get a sales call. But I spend way less time on sales calls with people that aren't genuine prospects now.
Yeah. And that sounds awesome. Yeah.
So tell me, what do you have coming up next in your business? What are you working on now?
So we've just had fantastic news that one of our long-term local Santa Fe interior design clients was named one of the 10 interior design bloggers for a big interior design industry event. It's a furniture market, and all of the interior designers go, the press goes, and they picked 10 bloggers to kind of represent and show trends from the market. So she was picked as one of them, and she and I were both so excited, because it was kind of my strategy behind the scenes. I built her website 3 years ago, and I introduced her to Instagram and what hashtags are, and gave her a strategy for social media and a strategy for the blog. And we've been creating all her content for that. So it was, a great confirmation of showing how how valuable our work with interior designers is and can be. And she's been featured in Country Living magazine now. She's shot to 15,000 Instagram followers. It's really been a fantastic collaboration. And I would love to be able to offer that to more interior designers, so I'm going to go to the market with her and, offer more kind of, audit is a bad word, but reviews of interior designers' online presence and brand, and really be able to support that niche with my knowledge of their business, because I've had one, and my knowledge of the online world. So
that's amazing. So you're not talking just audits. I mean, you're talking full on strategy. I mean, content strategy. You're talking social media strategy. That's well beyond just typical web services. So you're really expanding into a very niche market with a very custom service.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm in it for the long haul. I want to really shepherd these particular businesses. So I think I'm going to take a leaf out of your book and start sort of client interview days, because it truly is, if I dedicate my time and work life to a company like that, I want to love what they do and them as people, So that's what I'm looking for.
Awesome. So tell me, where can our listeners and viewers find you?
You can find me on byfrancisca.com, and you'll probably have to put the link in
I will. So
to spell it right.
In the show notes, yeah.
Yes. So that's my website, and I am not walking my talk yet, because I actually don't get my clients via an online presence. So,
sure.
But you can find me on Instagram, on Pinterest, and Facebook, my Facebook page. And just reach out to me, send me an email if you want to chat. I'd love to review or give you any kind of feedback on your online brand strategy and presence, so that you can attract the right clients and, press, credibility, and potentially even monetize your online presence. That's the kind of key elements we're working on.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we're going to let you get back to some fun in Carlsbad and Oceanside. So thanks.
Yay. Thank you.
In today's episode, we talked about masterminds and mentors. So if you would like our free checklist on questions to ask before joining a mastermind, please go to the show notes at lemonadepodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to Turning Lemons into Lemonade, where women go for support and encouragement to hear how other women business owners turn their setbacks into successes to create 6- and 7-figure businesses. We look forward to seeing you next week.